party. Yeah, we got a whole room full of it.
As Marshal of the University, it is my honor to declare open the proceedings of the College Diploma Ceremony of the 527th Convocation of the University of Chicago, and to introduce the university's 13th President, Robert J. Zimmer. Please be seated.
Good afternoon and welcome to the College Diploma Ceremony. We're very pleased that you're able to be with us to celebrate the hard work, personal growth, and overall achievement that we recognize today with the degrees I conferred this morning and the diplomas that we are about to award. The University of Chicago is a complex institution with many schools and divisions in addition to the college, awarding many different degrees. The college, however, plays a very particular and central role in the fabric of the university. It is the one part of the university in which students' education is, by design, connected to all the divisions and schools. Consequently, it is the one place where faculty from across the university come together to craft a common curriculum for the students that they share. In this way, the college is an expression of the values and fundamental principles of this university, and an important intellectual meeting ground for all students and faculty, testing ideas from students and faculty with a startling range of interests and perspectives. Today, we celebrate your individual achievements and welcome you as new alumni of the university. But we also celebrate your role in the ongoing history of the university, in the development of the very distinctive education and culture that, in your time here, you help to reinforce and renew with your work every day. I hope you enjoy this moment and the personal milestone it represents, and I hope you take pride in your individual achievements, as well as your contributions, past and future, to the stewardship of one of the great treasures of higher education in the world, the College of the University of Chicago. Congratulations.
As Provost of the University, it is my pleasure to introduce three members of the class of 2015-2016 who will be offering remarks this afternoon. They will be speaking in the following order: Kristopher Pittard, Hannah Gitlin, and Konje Machini.
President Zimmer, Dean Boyer, honored faculty, friends, and family, and fellow members of the class of 2016, for what has to be about the millionth time today, I'd like to congratulate us all. Regardless of where you came from or where you're going, graduating from the University of Chicago, graduating from college, is an incredibly impressive achievement, one that we should all be proud of. So congratulations to us, today's class of 2016. And we really are today's class of 2016. We are not the same group that came in 4 years ago. We're not even the same class as 1 quarter ago. Some of us have been here for 3 years, hashtag overachievers. Some of us have been here for 5, maybe even more. Some of us transferred, some went on leave. 2 people who should be here this afternoon passed away. So if we can't even say that we all spent the same 4 years here, what can we say that we have in common? There is no such thing as the UChicago experience. What was quintessential for someone could have been peripheral for someone else. My UChicago experience was defined by booth and went houses, and by basically being a band dork. Other people will look back on their time here and see it dominated by sports, RSOs, economics, or truly embracing the city of Chicago, or just living in the reg. So what on earth do we all have in common? I think maybe, just maybe, there are 3 things. We all came here, we all did the real-life equivalent of the Facebook wow emoji the first time we saw Dean Boyer's mustache, and none of us ever read a word of doing honest work in college. I never even got the book. But let's talk about that first one. Even though all of us chose to come here for different reasons, we were all here. We have all lived UChicago with each other. When I look out at this crowd, I see people who have done incredible things, whether they wrote a brilliant essay, made a real-life Patronus for Scav, or just got 8 hours of sleep every night. I know that there are even more of us that I never had the pleasure to meet. I think it's important for us to remember that we are all that incredible person to somebody else at this school. That by virtue of being here today, we have all done incredible things, no matter how visible they were on campus or how many Facebook likes they got us. Because as we celebrate today, we also look towards the future. I think all of us with some mix of excitement, nervousness, and wondering if people in the real world are going to think it's weird when we talk about Marx. But after years of living the life of the mind, how do we carry that life forward into the real world and give it meaning? How do we transition from oftentimes decades of preparing to make a difference to actually beginning to make that difference? Because as Uncle Ben pointed out to us 2 Spider-Man reboots ago, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think that the responsibility that falls to every single one of us is to figure out how to take what we have learned here and use it to help make the world a better place. Now, the way that each and every one of us does that is going to be completely different. It may be someone figuring out a way to solve world hunger. It also might be someone figuring out how to help someone struggling with their identity. Could even be helping to teach a classroom full of fourth graders or fourth-year college students. It's probably more in common with those two groups than we'd like to admit. And yes, finding our way to do good in this world will be incredibly hard. But so was everything else that we've done here. And after years of seeing all of us make the impossible into the routine, I don't just think we can do it. I know we can. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Graduation makes the short list of big life moments. At this time of year, this particular milestone, the graduation section at the Hallmark store, is at least as big as, let's say, the new baby section. It's funny how Hallmark has a monopoly on memories. There is no Hallmark sentiment that adequately sums up our time here. There's no "sorry it was so cold at summer breeze" card, though on a day like today, that seems like a blessing. There's no "what humor you in" card for first years to send one another flirtatiously. There's no card that says "roses are red, violets are blue." I think it's 7th week, but it could be 8th week too. Nor should there be. Those would be terrible cards. 50 years from now, when you find a box of graduation cards in your basement, you'll know that "congrats, you did it" doesn't tell the whole story of what you did here, but I'll give Hallmark a break on that one. It's hard to think of anything that could. Graduation happens neatly within the confines of this ceremony, but college happens messily in vaguely remembered bits and pieces that resist orderly cliches. The particulars of this ceremony may just go the way of blurrily remembered scav items, frantically completed soc papers, and all the math that we humanities majors learned in high school. But, you know, that's okay, because I can think of at least one thing that we'll all remember about today. The stupid hat. Why on earth is it so poorly engineered? Maybe now that we have an engineering school, we can figure out on a molecular level why these plastic death traps won't stay on our heads without bobby pins, super glue, and wishing really hard. But maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe graduation cap technology has progressed as far as it ever will. But maybe someday when we're scanning the impossibly immense databases inside of our heads, we will be struck by the remembered feeling of plasticky satin against skin and say to ourselves, "Ah yes, that was what graduation was like." Yes, these hats are weird and uncomfortable, but memory isn't always easy or comfortable either. We have milestones like graduation and symbols like the cap and gown to help give structure to the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. But the stories that make it onto our college curriculum, that's not because they have a structure, but because they in some way change a structure. Aren't your most memorable college stories not the ones that fit neatly onto a Hallmark card, but rather the ones where you felt something inside yourself change in some small but important way? It's easy to remember Cobb Hall as a pretty building, but its ivy-covered walls are far less important than all the tiny ways that you changed inside those walls. Imagine that you hold in your hands an envelope. You rip it open and take out the card that dwells inside. The front is blank, so you flip it over. But the back is blank too. You open it up. It's blank. Consider graduation a blank Hallmark card. 50 years from now, what you'll have is what you write in it. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. So, there's a cat that lives in the alley behind my apartment. It's a really fat cat, and so I've taken to calling him Bernie. Madoff, not Sanders. Needless to say, this is not the type of cat you want to take home to your parents. But, even with all his flaws, Bernie has become a familiar face, something expected. I wouldn't pet him, but I don't mind when he eats my trash. And I'd be sad to see him go. So to borrow an idea from a friend, Bernie is a part of my community. Community is a really weird thing in college. From the moment O Week started, we all got real busy doing the work of finding it. By the end of O Week, you're golden, you've got it. Rest assured, by 5th week, it could look very different. Now, fast forward to your 2nd or 3rd year. Maybe you're leaving your dorms for an apartment. You're excited to live on your own, but you're afraid that you'll have to start over again. You'll miss your housemates, even the weird one who ate grilled chicken breast for every meal at Bartlett. They too were a part of your community. So, eventually, you start to fill out the old contours and maybe some new ones. Community is always something you're working at. It's never a finished project. Community morphs, shrinks, and grows. It is built and it is shattered. In triumph and achievement, we celebrate the community. In tragedy and loss, the community mourns. Something we've had to do too often this past year. And while you may not be connected directly to these moments, it's community that amplifies our joy, and it's community that supports us in our grief. It is within these moments we can see the fruits of our labor in creating community. But if all goes according to plan, in a few short moments we'll receive our diplomas. So then what? What community do we belong to now? I think this question is familiar to most graduates and most anyone in a time of transition. I myself am a bit terrified of having to start all over again. New city, new job, no friends. A week with none of the free swag. So I think really what I've been trying to point to is the way in which community always remains to be defined. The process of creating it is the work of defining it. And we've had 4 years of not just theory, but of actually practicing what community means. So, in a sense, leaving this school, we aren't really starting from nothing. We get to leave here and continue redefining and expanding our community so that it can be so inclusive as to have room for strange alley cats. And part of this work of defining community is fighting for community, even if that attracts the attention of those in charge, and even better, the New York Times. So, we all get to and have to do this work. You probably came to college hoping to find a community. Maybe at this point you've had some practice building one. So, congratulations, class of 2016! Woo! We finally made it, and I think that's really something to celebrate. It was not easy, this was no small feat. And so here we are, done, mostly. But before we go our separate ways, and because we clearly haven't had enough homework already, I wanted to leave us with one last assignment, the quintessential Soc essay prompt. Define community. Thank you.
At this time, in the favoring presence of the congregation here assembled, we will begin the awarding of diplomas to students by collegiate division. The masters of the collegiate divisions and the university marshal will present candidates whose major fields of study fall in their respective areas. At the start of each collegiate division's presentation, we will grant the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Awards for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. The Quantrell Award is believed to be the nation's oldest prize for undergraduate teaching and is among the most treasured by our faculty, for selection is based on letters of nomination from students. At this time, I should also like to call your attention to the award of honors listed in the convocation program. The presentation of Quantrell Awards and college graduates will be in the following order: the Biological Sciences Collegiate Division, the Humanities Collegiate Division, the new Collegiate Division, the Physical Sciences Collegiate Division, the Social Sciences Collegiate Division, and finally, students in any division selected for their high academic achievement to serve as student marshals.
Jerome Clafter, Professor, Department of Anesthesia and Critical Care, will present the first Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. This will be followed by the presentation of graduates to the President and Dean by the Master of the Biological Sciences Collegiate Division.
Daniel Scott McGee is a neurophysiologist with research interests in the biologic mechanisms underlying addiction to nicotine and other substances of abuse. While he teaches graduate and medical students, in the college, he is director of Fundamentals of Physiology, a popular yet demanding course required of all first-year biology students. This course integrates concepts from cell biology and genetics and explores ways in which multicellular organisms overcome fundamental physical challenges. As a member of the steering committee of the Biological Sciences Collegiate Division, he has significant input into undergraduate curricular design and evolution. Representative teaching comments from undergraduate students include one of the best professors I've had for any biology class, very approachable, and told interesting stories that tied into the material being learned. Mr. President, I have the honor to present Dan McGee for the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Education.
Scholar of neurophysiology and accomplished teacher, Daniel Scott McGee engages his students in learning the foundational physiological principles of multicellular organisms. Daniel Scott McGee, on behalf of the University of Chicago, I now confer upon you the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. Congratulations.
Mr. President and Dean Boyer, as Master of the Biological Sciences Collegiate Division, I have the honor to present for their diploma these students who have completed programs in the biological sciences. Peter Lawrence Alexiev. Saida Akila Ali. Chukwanedum Obiagali Aniameka. Abina Apa Sampong. Miles Hayden Barney. Joshua Eugene Berland. Stephanie Bai. Medha Biswas. Zoe Marie Boundy Singer. Connor James Boyle. Elizabeth Ann Brim. Jessie Elizabeth Bronsky. Dana Briashka. Brian James Bunning. Adrian Alejandro Carcamo. Joseph Patrick Cariz. Shombit Roy Chowdhury. Darren Austin Chen. Sylvia Chen. Matthew Chiki Chung. Natalie Kristen Chung. Catherine Balfour Cove. Shi Dai. Gabriela de la Rosa. Roberto Carlos de Loria. Katrina Marie Deloso. Jin Deng. Sochi Dominguez. Kristen Nicole Don. Senshi Du. Omar El Sharif. Iris Emmerman. Marie Louise Pfefferman. Harry Yang Gao. Rania Gard. Mira Garriga. Anna Alexandra Godi. Brian Paul Goldspiel. Victoria Ann Groves. Brianna Nicole Hickey. Alicia Anna Ho. Andrew J. Homer. Scully Eugene Su. Ciara Tipping Hu. Christina Claire Wong. Danielle William Warren Hughes. Salman Saeed Islam. Capucine Jacob Cavagnac. Ellie Nicole Jacobson. Harini Jagannathan. Niti Jain. Joseph David Janicek. Bria M. Jordan. Elliot Scotty Joya. Louise Marie Judge. Alina Yamuna Kati. Saad Ahmed Khan. Emmanuel Mikhail Kibrom. Yunji Kim. Catalina Christine Kimball. Madeline Ertingoyen Klinger. Rachel Alif Koch. Veronica Kondev. Isabella Ann Kratzer. Kyle Nash Kunze. Monica Skylar Lanning. Abigail Preston Leinroth. Ruben Lesnick. Maya Ann Lewinson. Carissa Natalia Lim. Henry Kazunaru Lit. Angela Chen Liu. Kristen Ophelia Lopez. Nora Elizabeth Laughlin. Joyce Xian Liu. Makika Maeda. Samuel David Maidman. Marcus Latham Marable. Jonathan Marte. Colin Jude McNamara. Paris Piyush Mehta. Nayaka Sarandian Motashimi. Tess Ricardi Moran. Brian Hanchun Mu. Nicole Christine Mullen. Daniel Miratori. And Camdalin Ashley Nwakolo. Anthony Adedeji Azuma. Ahama Srivastava Pandiri. Eva Paulina Partida Abad. Brett Adam Pawski. Ariana Janelle Peters. Natalie Annie Petrosian. Adriana Marie Prada. Michael Robert Procassini. Jennifer Jen Quinn. Aditya Monahar Rao. Andrew Seth Rappaport. Martha Hope Wren. Sean Christopher Rivera. Surain Bala Roberts. Ari Benjamin Reutman. Natalia A. Roque. Shirag Sakar. Jomana Jane Samaha. Ivy Gazelle Sandquist. Noah Nicole Sawyer. Hoda Elizabeth Saeg. Andrew Joseph Scansey. Angela Shen. Vincent Shea. Madeline Stafford Sovi. Sudipta Sridhara. Anna Steerchula. Richard Benjamin Sulcer. James Leland Taylor. Lev Maximovich Tsipin. Luke A. Fursten. Maria Catherine Viteri. Luther Mason Walls. Jacqueline Fang Wong. Yuhao Wong. Dandre Antonino Warren. Sarah Wadanaschool. Hannah Ingerson Weller. Sean Youngjin Wong. Lelia Errett Williams. Nicholas Dragas Williams. Virgil Anderson Woods. Kevin Yang. Olivia Vicenta Ivelez. George Zachary. Paul Krita Zakin. Kylie Elizabeth Zane. Annie Zhang. Irene Zhang. And Daniel L. Zhang.
Gabriel Richardson Lear, Professor, Department of Philosophy, the John U. Neff Committee on Social Thought, and the College, Chair, Department of Philosophy, will now present the next Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. This will be followed by the presentation of graduates to the President and Dean by the Master of the Humanities Collegiate Division.
Malte Willer is a philosopher who uses the precise tools of formal semantics to study the dynamic ways that language creates meaning. In a range of courses, he introduces students to the exciting debates in the philosophy of language of the past 100 years and gives them the logical skills and confidence to take their own critical stance on the issues. Students praise him for his ability to transform dry and difficult material into the basis of engaging class discussion. Over and again, they express their grateful surprise at discovering how interesting questions in logic and the philosophy of language can be. The following comment is typical. Malta is a truly excellent teacher. There are few like him. He obviously puts a lot of work into his teaching and cares deeply about his students' learning. He is also hilarious. I imagine that any class he teaches would be fantastic. Clear, demanding, and full of good humor, he embodies the university's commitment to undergraduate education. Mr. President, I have the honor to present Malte Willer for the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Education.
Philosopher of language and formal semantics, Malte Willer opens students to the complex ways language conveys meaning and truth and helps them to experience precise reasoning as a source of joy and illumination. On behalf of the University of Chicago, I now confer upon Malte Willer the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. Congratulations.
Mr. President, Dean Boyer, as Master of the Humanities Collegiate Division, I have the honor to present for their diploma these students who have completed programs in the humanities. Amil Sharif Adam. Eno Agoli. Shire Momin Ahmed. Annalisa Linda Amburn. Sofia Polina Anastasievsky, Jake Arroyo Simon, Max Joseph Asaf, Rebecca Ann Askins Gast, Lillian Rachel Astroff, Anna Claire Atkinson, Jay Bach, Brian James Barker, Megan Rose Barnes, Laurie Madeleine Beckhoff, Frederick Caro Benedecchi, Emily Pearl Perez, Maxine Leah Berman, Gabrielle Anna Bernard, Frances Margaret Bernstein, Daniel Ricardo Bettencourt, Maverick Samuel Blanton, Sarah Lorraine Blauser, Eamon Robert Andrew Boylan, Walker West Brewer, Emily Elizabeth Brown, Brianna Maria Bullock, Charles Stephen Bullock, Cynthia Marie Campus Costanzo, Izo Chai, Emma Jane Kristenfield, Jennifer Kalechi Q, Dana Renee Cohen, Eli Aaron Cohen, Emma Chase Collins, Antonio Miguel Cruz Uribe, Michael Joseph Darmiento, Alexa Caitlin Doherty, Lauren Kiesling Duritsu, Elizabeth Del Toro, Paul Francis Dillon, Amelia Dimowska, Nora Elizabeth Dolliver, Alexandra Peters Dudley, Catherine Cosgrove Dugan, Luke Jean Maximilian DeRoche Danner, Andrew Martin Ekholm, Taryn Alexis Edwards, Emily Grace Ehrmantraut, Jacob Bryce Elkin, Elizabeth A. Ellingbo, Armando Fernandez, Samantha Rose Finley, Jessie Hannah Fish, Madeline Grace Fitzgerald, Julia Mary Friedland, Daniel Aaron Friedman, Claire Marie Fuller, Erin Christine Fuller, Sarah McCutcheon Fulton, Rosalie Han Gay, Abigail R. Ginsberg, Daniel Sam Glass, Ellen Polly Goff, Peter Franklin Goldberg, Idalia Frisia Esther Gonzalez, Sydney Rose Grannon, Deshaun Harba, Joshua Sonny Harris, Tori Marie Helt, Daniel Joseph Henderson, Michael Benjamin Homiak, Jennifer Horton, Joyce Huang, Andrew Daniel Hungate, Eleanor Michelle Hahn, David Benjamin Jaffe, Edwin Hao Chen Shang, Camilla Kathleen Keenan Cook, Hannah Grace Kelly, Sophie Park Kennedy, Kelsey Ray Kieran, Adam M. Khan, Erin Minji Kim, Walker Riley King, Allison Rebecca Kramer, Erica Jade Kruger, Avery Joseph Laflamme, Madison Nicole Lands, Colin Anthony Lipinski, Gabriella Maria Lasters, Lorali Pirelli Laurent, Jenny Ji-Sang Lee, Jonathan, I'm sorry. Perry Sophia Levitt, Jenny Jisang Lee, Jonathan Wan Lee, Andrew John Percy Liberton, Andrew K. Lindsay, Stacy Junchia Liu, James Francis Rogers McKenzie, Sean Aryun Mayumdar, Olivia Maynard Markbreiter, Anna Isabel Martinez, Taylor Lee McDowell, Ryan David McNamara, Wesley Stearlin Mills, Avi Mark Mulder, Rishad Mansour, Shauna Kathleen Moore, Christian John Mortensen, Augustus von Moss, Shubra Murarka, Peter Dimitrov Nalbantov, Gabriel Ian Joseph Nathan, Tyler Jefferson Neenan, Joseph Edwin Carmola Nydorf, Clayton Nicholas Norris, Alexis Yugosa Obaswi, John Thomas O'Connor, Jacqueline Yuet Kwai Mohani Kayala Orshiro, Jonathan Raven Otkasek, John Joseph Otto III, Julius Jiho Pak, Camila Elizabeth Palomino, Emma Claire Pauley, Margot Rosalia Pierluzzi, Nicholas Robert Posgay, Jonah Hirsch Rab, Eden Joshua Rackett, Hannah Wills Rausch, Alexander Buck Relihan, Alexandra Paizo Robledo, Eve Rogers, Tyler Shaw Roeder, Jacob Christian Romero, Jacob Samuel Rosenberg, Chris Rosenthal, Jackson Scott Roth, Sarah Wendell Rubenstein, Brooke Lauren Rutstein, Shalani Sanker, Nathaniel Hillel Schwartz, Alina Marie Scotty, Helen Olga Switzoff, Rebecca Marion Siegel, Hannah Marie Vada Shea, Nicholas Ruben Sideran, Joshua Michael Silver, Melanie Veronica Sneeder, Robert David Nelson Sorrell, Shoshana May Spurlock, Simon Andrew Stanko, Max Hiro Tamahori, Shio Wang Tan, Sarah Danielle Tarabai, Clancy Sheraton Taylor, Angela Irene Theodoropoulos, Allison Julia Torem, George Joseph Townsend, Anna Tropnikova, Reland Elizabeth Adibak, William Tyler Ullman, Stephen Tyler Urchik, Berkan Uz, Juliana Francesca Vaccarino Girti, Catherine Mary Vandervalk, Lauren Ray Fogel, Leah Rachel von Essen, Kaylee Foss, Marina Claire Vulinovic, Shiro Keitsia Wachira, Gareth Lennox Walsh, Philip Brian Wandawa, Kaiji Jeffrey Wang, Li Wang, Yi Wang, Joanne Paulette Welch, Ruth Ellen Wellen, Cambria Arian Whitcomb, Kelsey Eames Whitcomb, Juliana Lee White, Danielle Ali Weeder, Gwendolyn Margaret Wiegold, Anne Lila Wilner, Kenny Wong, Celia Bing Yuin, Angela Sang, Cynthia Quincy Sang, Willa Yi Cheng Sang, Jeffrey Zhao, Yu Ching Su,
The Director of Undergraduate Studies in Religious Studies, on behalf of the new Collegiate Division, will now present graduates to the President and Dean.
Mr. President and Dean Boyer, on behalf of the Master of the new Collegiate Division, I have the honor to present for their diploma these students who have completed the programs in the new Collegiate Division. Aneri Amin, Karen Marie Anderson, Alexander James Balls, Navia M. Fraser. Blaise Maria Gervais. Anne McLeod Gifford. Hannah Marie Gitlin. Kamran Hashemzadeh. Abigail Xenia Huntley. Ji Yun Jung. Jacob Pierce Kaufman. Jenny Lucienne Kerouac. Emma Barton Coach. Kyla Rose Matheson. Jordan Cosby Poole. Samuel Pugliafito. Evan Alexander Roche. Julia Lily Santa. Rachel Julia Scheinfeld. Ethan Samuel Stockwell. Jasmine Marie Throckmorton. Nicholas Theobald Iselin von Horn. Madeline Marie Witters.
Robert Fetherman, Max Mason Distinguished Service Professor, Department of Mathematics and the College, will now present the next Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. This will be followed by the presentation of graduates to the President and Dean by the Master of the Physical Sciences Collegiate Division.
Sarah N. Ziesler is a scholar and teacher of mathematics whose instruction has delighted and inspired students in all of her classes. She transmits her deep understanding and love of the subject she teaches with so much success that it is not uncommon for her students to feel that her class is the best they have taken at the university. For example, one student wrote, "Sarah is the best teacher I have ever had, and it is because of her that I am pursuing further studies in math. She has shown her students kindness and encouragement and support that just leaves me speechless." Another wrote, "I can't put into words how much Dr. Ziesler has influenced my college career. She has honestly changed my life." Mr. President, I have the honor to present Sarah Ziesler for the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Education.
A scholar and a teacher, Sarah Ann Ziesler's remarkable devotion to her students and outstanding classroom performance transform her students' understanding and appreciation of mathematics. Sarah Ann Ziesler, on behalf of the University of Chicago, I now confer upon you the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. Congratulations.
Mr. President and Dean Boyer, as Master of the Physical Sciences Collegiate Division, I have the honor to present for their diploma these students who've completed programs in the physical sciences. Ashwin Krishna Acharya. Jonas Albert Actor. Omar Sherar Aga. Jacob Lee Albers. Nicholas Dean Anderson. Jaime Arana Rochelle. Jeremy L. Archer. Michael Andrew Armona. Anton Averin. Julian Wei Bao. Kevin Chang Barnum, Evan Daniel Betterman, Jonathan Richard Behrens, Ian Douglas Bergman, Kevin Bruno Bernat, Stella Rose Biederman, Hannah Parker Binney, Alyssa Marie Weller Blackburn, Christopher David Bochenik, Justin Bogany, Freddie Alfonso Bolton, Andrew Graham Bourne, Benjamin Philip Bulow, Robert Ezel Butler III, Austin Bryant Byers, Benjamin Everett Call, Brandon Marcus Callender, Nathan Paul Caniff, Emma Grace Castiglia, Jenna Nicole Cervantes, Michael Jason Servia, Spencer D. Chan, Alice Jenlin Chang, Michael Stephen Chekin, Alexander Tai Chen, Elliot Kong Chen, Patrick Chen, Peter Jeffrey Chen, Ian Basil Cronus, Sheena Y. Chu, James Maxwell Clark, Jenna Lee Clemens, David James Cohen, Brendan John Collins, Angela Dawn Cordova, Nina Morel Coyle, Anthony Raymond Crespo, Owen Cummings, Andrew Shivik, Colin Nicholas DeWazio, Tyler Addison Darnell, Harry Hamilton Dempsey, Daniel Lee Deng, Skylar Anthony Detour, Gamal Abdel DeWeaver, Alejandro Diaz, Tanner Casey DeLello, Andrew Dong, Alexander George Droster, Zari Propion Dumanian, Paul Raymond Duncan, Ty O. Easley, Raphael R. Iguchi, Jack Andrew Ellenberger, Sophie Ariel Ettinger, Heffy Fong, Jace Laban Fayer, Sarah Ann Fitzpatrick, Michael Lewis Fosco, Stephen Albert Frank, Vaughn Lake Franz, Michael Frasco, Kevin Michael Fries, Hannah Concetta Friedman, Andoni Michael Garcia, Sean Joseph Gazarowski, Philip Geeman, Christopher John Gioga, Kira Sharon Elizabeth Gandhi. James Connor Galula. Nathan Pruneau Gill. Michael Lewis Goldman. Francis X. Green. Melissa Faith Grossbarth. Natalia Grutzin. Sergio Alberto Guerra. Jida Gui. Justin Weiji Guo. Abhi Gupta. Ravi Gupta. Matthew Aaron Gurovich. Mohit Malin Hajarnis. Noah Henry Jacobs Halford. Eric Lewis Halpern. Clark Jacob Halpern. Mohammed Fadi Hamoud. Jackson Russell Hance. Dominic Lee Hanna. Richard Lewis Hanson. Samuel William Harrison. Alex William Hayes. Jordan Marcel Heisel. Danica Renee Holmes. Harsha Prasad Hanasoge. Samuel Alex Hopkins. Aaron Alexis Horning. Curtis Robert Huey. Benjamin Kwok Hyun. Allison Wong. Martin Spencer Hyman. Alyssa M. Jared. Zachary Tyler Jenkins. Isabel Marie Jensen. Patrick James Jensen. Troy Deneen Jernigan. Pedro Juarez. Mark Sunwoo June. Wakanene Kamau. Jacob Newman Kaplan. Hannah Schaefer Kanegi. Theodore J. Kim. James William Kiselek. Hunter Larson Cordial. Nicholas Edward Kowalski. Johannes Cronenberg. Albert Quo. Jonathan Xavier Kyle. Mark Kevin Landgreed. Hadar Lazar. Sung Hwan Lee. Adam Edward Levy. Eric Allen Lee. J.U. Liang. Philip Chi Chui Liang. Edward Aaron Block Lee. Christopher Matthew Leopold. Angela Lynn. George Lee Liu. Chi Liu. David H. Livingston. Maren Elizabeth Lowe. John Nicholas Lober. Gabriel Tal Loria. Vicente Celedonio Losada. Jacob Andrew Lurie. Lucia Liu. Connor Raymond Lynch. Paige Joseph McKenzie. Austin Alexander Mance. Ryan A. Manzuk. Julian Charles Moronic. Julian David Martinez. Stefan Octavio Dusa Martinez. Ariel Yechezkel Matalon. William Cannon Matthews III. Mateus Lemos Mauricio. Sarah Isabel McConnell. Alexander James McDonough. Ryan Michael McDowell. Allison Lynn McManus. Redmond Callahan McNamara. Nolan Clark Maroney Brown. Drew Schrader Melcher. Reed Benjamin Mershon. Terry Je Ming. Catherine Marie Moresco. Jacob Kendall Mulcahy. Itamor Louis Nadler. Udipta Naidu. Sachin R. Natesh. Lucetta Vadimovna Navrashnik. Ming Eng. Victoria Amelia Norman. Paloma Luz Okola. Kevin Anthony O'Connor. Catherine Judith Oosterbahn. John Lawrence Orlowski Scherer. Estelle Ramona Ostro. Naomi Morgan Bacallan. Yugia Pan. Srinivas Varadendra Panchamuki. Marissa Catherine Parker. Josh William Pierce. Robert B. Peng. Yu Cheng Peng. Mark Palmer Perlman. Kristopher Michael Pittard. Matthew Tyler Portune. Remy Luca Preckelt. Courtney Nicole Prentice. Marco Edward Prezioso. James Martin Racanelli. Tesneem Raman. JSI Ram Rajagopal. Chaithin Nakalapati Reddy. Michael George Reed III. Emma Karen Reichus. Thomas Remisong. Megan Austin Renshaw. Sean Reynolds. Andriana Isabel Rizzo. John Indris Roberts. Trevor Dale Roberts. Benjamin Joseph Rohr. Matthias Castelfranco Ross. Nicholas Malin Rouse. Audrey Genevieve Rowe. Anish Raj Roy. Michael David Roy. Tanya Marie Rudikovich. Jake Carter Russell. Abhinav Shah. Samuel Hertzfeld Saskin. Lauren Joy Saunders. Aaron Jacob Scher. Salviano P. Shalasi. William Tahoe de Oliveira Schrader. Beckett Jack Wood Sempliner. Sunjit Shashi. Abigail Joy Shiro. Scott Jialun Shi. Joel Franklin Siegel. Daniel Silva Inclon. Matthew J. Silverman. Suhel Sanjay Singh. Maria Jensen Smith. Joseph Benjamin Solomon. Anisa Sonawala. Guchuan Song. Julian Jacob Spergel. Mitchell Henry Spradlin. Adriana May Steinbach. Andrew Jacob Steer. Sairi Wee Shuo Wang Suarez. Daniel James Sullivan. Matthew Ambrose Sullivan. Adam Patrick Sutherland. Ridwan Syed. Blaine Aaron Foster Talbot. Melissa Xiao Tan. Chunwei George Teo. Yiran Tian. Parker Keel Tixon. Adil Anand Toba. Torold James Tronrud. Olivia Amanda Tsi. Michael Francis Unold. Emily Ann Urbanek. Ricardo Aaron Velos. Frederick D. Vu. Yifan Jeffrey Wong. Zachary Jenyu Wong. Amanda Lynn Waterbury. Kirsten Amy Weirdbauer. Ji Wei Wu. Li Yu Xia. Bernard Shi. Andrew Yang. Yang Xinwei Yang. Taekwon Yoon. Yan Xinwei Yang. Taekwon Yoon. Giorgio Federico Young. Esteban Zakarzuski. Sarah Sujin Zeichner. Alice Zhang. Fei Fan Zhang. Victor Zhang. Haonan Zhou. Alan Chengqi Zhu. Ningfeng Zhu. And Yucho Zhou.
Stefan Bonham, Professor, Department of Economics and the College, will present the next Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching.
Derek Allen Neal is an economist who specializes in human capital, education policy, wage inequality, the economics of crime, and labor economics more generally. He teaches undergraduate courses in the methods of empirical and theoretical economic analysis, as well as sought-after elective courses. A dedicated advisor of undergraduate thesis and mentor to young researchers, he transmits to students his passion for labor economics and for finding solutions to pressing social problems in ways that encourage students to pursue further study. When asked, how has this course contributed to your education, one of his students replied, Neal is very up-to-date on education research, often at the cutting edge of it himself. The class really benefits from it. Another student said, I can hold an intelligent conversation about the incentives behind public education globally. I also have a better understanding of how to evaluate empirical strategies in economics. These responses reflect his commitment to teaching students to balance rigorous theoretical foundations with extensive empirical testing. Mr. President, I have the honor to present Derek Allen Neal for the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Education.
Labor economist Derek Allen Neal transmits to his students the importance of carefully constructed social policies rooted in theory and validated empirically to produce a more just society. Derek Allen Neal, on behalf of the University of Chicago, I now confer upon you the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. Congratulations.
Kenneth Pomeranz, University Professor, Department of History, Department of East Asian Languages and Civilizations, and the College, will now present the last Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. This will be followed by the presentation of graduates to the President and Dean by the Master of the Social Sciences Collegiate Division.
Emily Osborne is our campus's only full-time historian of Africa, a continent with 54 countries and over 1 billion people. This is a role that makes impossible demands, yet Emily somehow meets them all. Her students appreciate her grasp of an extraordinary range of material and her infectious enthusiasm for her subject. But just as much, if not more, they value how well she gets to know her students, even in large classes, and her ability to make classes exciting as well as thought-provoking. Her students note that her remarkable skills as a lecturer are only the beginning. What is even more impressive is how she makes them feel comfortable exploring topics about which many of them knew very little before her class, creating a heady atmosphere of curiosity, confidence, and eagerness, and a strongly felt sense of learning as a vitally important shared enterprise. Mr. President, I have the honor to present Emily Lynn Osborne for the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Education.
Scholar of African histories, societies, and cultures, Emily Lynn Osborne exemplifies a fierce dedication to learning and helps her students live the idea that the steep learning curve which unfamiliar subjects offer is not an occasion for fear, but an opportunity for exciting growth. Emily Lynn Osborne, on behalf of the University of Chicago, I now confer upon you the Llewellyn John and Harriet Manchester Quantrell Award for Excellence in Undergraduate Teaching. Congratulations.
Mr. President and Dean Boyer, as Master of the Social Sciences Collegiate Division, I have the honor to present for their diploma these students who have completed programs in the social sciences. Catherine Marie Anensen. George Anthony Abitante. Rebecca Frieden Abrams. Bobby Adusumili. Ioana Ekaterina Aguilar Mendez. Sebastian Ackerman. Salman Ali. Martha Leticia Alvarez. Kaylin Danielle Amory. Adhiraj Anand. Jonathan Ensinger Antos. Garrett Pratis Appel. Brock Philip Appenzeller. Kenneth Armstrong. Fatima Aslam. Alexander Basil Athenson. Seth Barnum Wilson August. Zachary Jean Augustine. Cynthia Jennifer Avila. Evelyn Giagia Bai. Anthony Bastian Bayless. Kaavya Balasubramanian. Taylor Michelle Bonholzer. Alexander Zev Barg. Madeline Victoria Barr. Brennan Kramer Bassman. Ruben Randall Bauer. Clark Austin Belanger. Christopher Bello. Vincent Domenico Beltrano. Emily Jane Benjamin. Michael Truman Bennett. Jasmine R. Berry. Rahul Suhas Bide. Alexander Carroll Bischoff. Kent Alexander Bischoff. Mary Roll Bittner. Darius Mark Blakovitz. Henry Philip Blood. Miles M. Blumenkrantz. Maximilian Robert Bluestone. Nicholas Bosanegra. Samuel Timothy Boland. Chloe Ludgate Booth. Francesca Charlotte Botorf. Peter Joseph Boxley. Brandon Philip Batsopoulos. Piers Adam Brecker. Christopher Edward Breen. Eric Nathaniel Brewer. Nathan Brooks III. Anna A. Brosgulis. Samuel Farjion Buckwalter. Samantha Elizabeth Buck. Eliana Crystal Butler. Elizabeth Catherine Butler. Caroline Helen Bai. Spencer Sloan Byrne. Sibo Kai. Francisco Augustin Calvash Meyer. Isabel Mary Kanan. Ryan Matthew Cannon. Adrian Torvald Carlson. Daniel Matthew Casara. Emery Carter Kavanaugh, Jing Chai, Taylor Ann Chamberlain, Stephanie Antoinetta Champy, Sinyi Shini Chan, Bharat Krishnan Chandar, Theodore Tanat Chatjaval, Carter Coltrane Willoughby Chen, Donna Chen, Shozren Chen, Tunan Chen, Zhengye Chen, James Chung, Sasha Bonafede Chabra, Eric S. Chien, Ryan Chu, Pui Chung Chu, Kunsik Cho, Heather Elizabeth Choi, Thomas Jungwood Choi, Yubi Choi, Ashley Chong, Melissa Chow, Noah Jerome Christians, Karen Lorraine Chu, Cindy Chung, Raymond Katsuki Chung, Chloe Isabel Cipolla, Benjamin Richard Clark, Colton Meyer Clark, Amelia Lynn Clements, Eleanor Alana Clifford, Andrea Clinton, Rufus Coates Welsh, Bess Poxon Cohen, Samuel Woodfin Coleman, Samantha Janet Collins, Paul J. Comet, John Patrick Corcoran, Margaret Murray Cornelius, Sam Royston Cortese, Lauren Alicia Covington, Jacob S. Crawford, Gerald Philip Crane IV, Sophia Alexandra Critchfield Jane, Dennison Powell Crowell, Shu Yi Kui, Lauren Brooks Culbertson, Nicole Charlotte Cunha Gomez, Gregory Charles DaCosta Guimare, Mingyue Dai, Ashley Christina Daniel, Christopher Allen Doherty, Vladimir David, Cameron Knox Day, Aaron Philip Demsetz, Aaron Dang, Christopher Haynes Dengler, Romain Andre de Planta, Talia Joelle Dessel, Lauren Elizabeth Dietzel, Robert Ding, Michael John Dinsmore, Philip Kirill Dobranoff, Natnael Beyin Doilicho, Jacqueline Ann Domrowski, Drew Allen Donaldson, Christina Z. Dong, Samuel Dong, Jennifer Lillian Dorfman, Olivia Lynn Doro Hovland, Catherine Ann Dolly, Hannah Dragon, Jeffrey Michael Dresnick, Alexandra Diana Dumazic, Andrea Dutu, Celia Campbell Eckert, Catherine Corinne Ekstrom, Carissa Isabel Asperer Ekleren, Cyril V. Eicherman, Dahlia Abraham Ailmalt, Julia Ann Eplin Zapf, Joseph Brendan Eroyan, Meredith Kincaid Esquivel, Daniel Rafael Estevez, Claire McDonald Everts, Laura Patricia Foss, Chuni Fan, Elisha Raul Farley, Vanessa Marie Ferranti, Lauren Danielle Feldman, Rachel Tamsin Ferry, Summer Jasmine Fields, Tatiana Karina Fields, Chelsea Hannah Fine, Dylan Finley, Hannah Michael Flynn, Matthew Thomas Foncaro, Sarah Arroyo Fontes, Anisha Bhattacharya Ford, Catherine Jean Forrester, Lindsay Rose Forty, Elizabeth Schiller Frank, Charlotte Frances Franklin, Amira Francesca Freeman, Laurel Marie Friedenberg, Maxine Frendel, Evan Grace Frankel, Lucas Timothy Friss, Linda Yuan Fu, Rico Long Hin Fung, Carson Liti Gaffney, Michael Galperin, Tavish Giorgio Gantz, Brandon Garcia, Micah Taylor Gard, Leah Marie Garner, Quinn Forrest Georgic, Ankmend Gerald Togtok, Amos Asher Gewurtz, Chloe Rose Giannatasio, Surya Giri, Chloe Chavon Glisby, Adam Joseph Godby, Jason Philip Gold, Matthew Hirsch Goldenberg, Hyunsu Gong, Anna Jamina Gonzalez, Jonathan Rafael Gonzalez, Michael Perry Goodyear, Karen Marie Gorski, Nicole E. Gorton, Matthew Adam Gottesfeld, Regine Alethea Graves. Brian Donaldo Graybill. Allison Ann Green. Kristen Ann Greenwood. Richard Gremling. Trisha Gupta. Vidar Kumar Gupta. Carlos Eduardo Guzman Dairo. Heather Glazer Hagerling. Jonathan Richard Hagland. Michaela Phyllis Hamill. Andrew Richard Hammond. Sung Hee Han. Maya Honda. Ryan Nicole Hanley. Jenna Rose Harris. Mitchell Buxton Harrison. James Hassett Harder. Kevin H. Hassanfong. Urna Kanisa Hasni. Russell Sloan Hathaway. Thomas Daniel Healy. Jenna Shea Hebert. Lindsay Michelle Henderson. Maggie O. Hennigan. Mara Therese Hennigan. Scott James Herlihy. Joshua Lieb Hertzberg. Alana Louise Heyer. Jessica Erin Hickey. Ashley Marie Hilliard. Chewy Tom Ho. Ju-Wan Hong. Anton John Estaw Hopkins. Kyler Hu. Jameson Yueren Wang. Liang Chen Wang. Lillian Jiamin Huang. Peter Tyron Wang Huang. Sophia Sijia Huang. Jane Elizabeth Huber. Adrienne Marie Hunt. Samuel George Hussman. Jennifer Ji-Wan Huang. Joseph Francis Imburgia. Manuel Antonio Infante. Daisuke Inoue. Soman Irani. Ander Urutakoyena. Ellen Ann Eisman. Arvind Devajaran Iyengar. Rachel K. Jackson. Ellen Ann Jacobs. Annika Sandeep Jain. Raki Sandeep Jain. Yorkbel Hamario Tabares. Mark Anthony Stesney Jasbik. Yu Chen Ji. Michelle Yuan Jiang. Livia Z. Zhang. Catherine G. John. Rutvik Viren Juglakar. Jacob E. Johnson. Luke Gordon Mowers Johnson. Rex Rogers Johnson. Sophia Kelly Johnson. Kyla Rose Seltzer Johnson. Claire Renee Jokinen. Zara Asma Juma. Carl Lewis Joyner. Hong Yi Ju. Timothy Andrew Zhuang. Eskura Tekleshki Kesa. Courtney Victoria Kan. Andrew Kang. Dong-Yun Daniel Kang. Ariella Jordana Casmer Jacobs. Theo McLeod Kesselbaum. Sneha Kesuganti. Huda Kutubi. Zoe Isabel Coder Nailbuff. Komal Kawatra. Erica Lynn Kelly. Hunter Powell Kelly. Kennedy. Zachary Sam Kessler. Mubin Ahmed Khan. Hannah Ebert Kosla. Meira Azra Khwaja. Talin Eliana Kiefer. Eric Myungjun Kim. Hei Hyun Kim. Joseph Soo-Wan Kim. Kevin Hyusup Kim. Kwang Hyun Kim. Michelle Seung-Jin Kim. Patrick Kim. Rochelle Anna Kim. Brennan Harris King. Tyler Bradley Kissinger. Elizabeth Fensky Knopf. Ugur Kosik. Megan Louise Kanan. Grace Hyun Ko. Kathleen Elizabeth Combe. Sashwat Koirala. Katerina Anastasia Kokas. Oluwafikayo Olutimeleyan Koyeho. Mitchell Lewis Kroll. Anjali Ashley Kumar. Anurag Kumar. Siddhart Kumar. Rachel Elizabeth Kupfer. Meredith Juliet Kushner. Tony Marie Kuzjela. Mo Yin Jessica Kwok. Qianjian Lei. Parina Dinesh Lalchandani. Winston Kyler Lam. Sarah Ann Landis. Jennifer G. Wan Law. Zachary Mason Lawrence. William Joseph Letty IV. Annie Elaine Lee. Austin Abner Lee. Diane Lee. Jean Lee. Ji-hyun Lee. Jonghyun Lee. Marissa Heju Lee. Stephanie Lee. Nicole Zoe Lenac, Christina Leon, Samuel Palins Levine, Arthur Zhang Biao Li, Gina Lee, Grace Liao, Jeannie Rachel Lieberman, Frederick Legal, Kristen Lauren Lin, Olivia Lin, Sophia Jia Yuan Lin, Jonathan Ling, Michael Wang Liu, Yang Liu, Yongchen Liu, Michael Richard Liza, Wing Chung Vincent Lo, Roberta Jacinta Lobo, Gabriel Lobo Guerrero, Nabila Lotayev, Ji Zhong Lu, Diana Zatali Lozano, Yan Jun Lu, Maxwell Willem Lubkeman, Iru Luo, Benjamin Lusamba, Shreya Luthra, Ian Thomas Lynch, Nicholas Paul Lyon, Konje M. Machini, Colin Ethan Macri, Rebecca Mack, Julian Fletcher Manasseh Boitani, Jun Wen Mao, Kelly Mao, Erica Nicole Marisic, Javier Kohli Marawala, Annalise Kathleen Markovic, Nathan Burnell Massey, Anna Catherine Mather, Michael Joseph Matlaga, Zelda Mayer, Julian Chu McClellan, Tamar Lynn McCollum, Kyle Patrick McCornack, James Patrick Steele McDonough, Brendan Milligan McGuire, Ashley Tyler McKeithen, Keenan Ryan McKenzie, Bradley Ryan McKnight, Lauren Elizabeth McMahon, Patrick Joseph McManus, Sumati Vidya Mehta, Juan Mario Mejia Posada, Adrian Melendez, Adil Menon, Rebecca Lily Mitchell, Elizabeth Rhiannon Luke Miller, Haley Janelle Miller, Jacob Clark Miller, Michael Adam Millman, Carolina Miranda Rodriguez, Jasmine S. Mobley. Sachin Dilip Modak. Michael Shane Modak Truran. Dua Mohammed. Peter Johannes Moeller. Victoria Regina Moores. Caitlin Marie Moore. Alexander Choate Moritz. Sushmitha Reddy Mupidi. Veronica Noelani Murashige. Priyanka Misore. Shreya Gayatri Naidu. David Nebiu Viok. Kiara Millet Nierenberg. Annabelle Newport. Brian Wing Kui Eng. Jordan Manchester Eng. Bob Liu Ni. Alexander James Nichols. Kyle M. Knightis. Jennifer Shirley Novo. Ekene Ogechi Nwankwo. Kathleen Nicole Oliver. Annika Karen Olson. Michael David Ormond. Ryan Alexander Oros. Miriam Andreiner Oterman. Kevin Michael Otrodovic. Julia Ann Ozello. Alexander Page. James Jayong Paik. Richard James Painter. Zoe Brahamsha Palanik. Nicole Marie Palermo. Chiara Pandolfi de Rinaldis. Yu Hui Pang. Michael Francis Pardo. Ivan Victor Parfanoff. Gregory Eubin Park. Brett Spencer Parquet. Devin Nicole Parkinson. Alejandro Ignacio Paraguez Tala. Emma Celia Pasternak. Riley Wymore Paul. Melissa Jane Pavlik. Dina Effie Peck. Nathaniel Joshua Peerbum. Paige Elizabeth Pendarvis. Bryce Donald Peppers. Vincente Glynn Perez. Alexandra Veronica Perez Garcia. Helen Alicia Peterson. Jameson Reed Pfeiffer. Derek Pham. Adam Nathaniel Picker. Nicholas John Pilek. Allison Ira Pildner. Madeleine Claire Pisani. Alexander Amerigo Pizzarani. Arabella Pluta Ehlers. Jordan Paul Porto. Coleman Austin Press. John Peter Praisner. Maria Ana Pulido. Jeremy Natan Pushkin. Ann Su. Eric Hugh Q. Ingxuan Cho. Dario Anthony Rabak. Oliver Lewis Rahman. Evan Sara Ramsey. Avishek Rao. Mariah Raquel Rayner. Sabahudin Redzepovic. Andrew Russell Reynolds. Minia Natalie Rios Gutierrez. Roman G. Rivera. Daniel Roberts. Bethany Michelle Robinson. Darian Robinson. Eric James Robinson. Sarah Catherine Robinson. Ellen Rodniansky. Jeremy Jackson Rodriguez. Sophia Ann Rosenfeld. Tyler Sean Ross. Annabelle Teresa Rosser. Sergio Andres Ruffalo. Sarah Mack Runkle. Claudia Elise Russell. Hazel Saba. Omar Safadi. Layla Safavi. Nicholas Stewart Safran. Jacob P. Sanenden. Max Andrews Samuels. Skylar James Sanderson. Mark Emerson Sands. Jean-Philippe Isaac Sangiovanni. Swawa Rajenda Saraya. Lakshmi Saravanapavan. Jacqueline Renee Sattler. Christian Saucedo. Albert R. Savitsky. Matthew Oliver Schaefer. Christina Shaver. Charles Robert Scherer. Jonathan Graham Schmidt. Elizabeth Page Schutz. Matthew Jacob Schweitzer. Ryder Charles Scott. Alexander Dean Saratelli. Mader Sate. Mosam Shah. Kevin D. Shang. Arnav Sharma. Julia Beth Sherman. Ame Deepak Sheth. Kevin Kaiwen Shi. Hee Chul Shin. Matthew Neal Schisler. Kutu Jaleka Silla. Jared Shane Simon. Samantha Lee Slayton. Jordan Christopher Smith. Richard Elliott Snyder. Joy Ibukunolu Subawale. Jasmine Solola. Sophia Yunmi Son. Micah Baram Sperling. Benjamin Peter Spikel. Pradeep Srikumar. Rishi Sriram. Madeline Claire Stanich. Vicky Angela Stavropoulos. John Samuel Steinberg. J. Michael Stemmer. Evelina Sterina. Juliana St. Ange. Angel's Son. Ingrid Elizabeth Viana Seidenstricker. Adia Marie Sykes. Naoko Takeda. Naoko Takeuchi. Ari Solomon Tandler. Elaine Donna Tang. Jacqueline Lucy Tang. Kwan An Tao. Samuel Addison Taylor. Emma Madia Terrani. Arthur Cyrus Tellis. Benjamin Spiro Tenenbaum. Teresa Mario Cienteo. Austin Augustus Terry. Tananya Tom Tieng. Romaine Thibault. Parker James Thomas. Gregory Scott Gerard Tomei. Cole Allen Toms. Megan Nicole Thornton. Jennifer Nicole Siddhartha Tintok. Maxwell T. Tatesworth. Allison Leigh Titus. Rachel Sue Todd. Lauren Renee Tolley. Arushi Tamar. Adeline Maria Torres. Nelson Elizabeth Trotter. Leandra M. Trudeau. Freddie Tsao. Vivian Tu. Susanna Mary Twan. Daniel Edward Tum. Omotalani A. Utman. Aishigul Yusal. Mitchell Evan Vashon. Nathan Malachi Vasquez. Matthew Joseph Veldman. Vidya Sharada Venkata Krishnan. Matili Vinakota. Michael F. Viola. Peter E. Visser. Rachel Catherine Vogt. Alexander Daniel Voss. Nicole Carolina Vulich. Aisha Woodavan. Rosa Britton Walker. Tyler Donai Walker. Ryan R. Walsh. Angie Uekui Wan. Justin Naveen Waney. Diana Jin Wang. Hao Wang. Joan Z. Wang. Lan Wang. Victoria Mingyi Wang. Yujue Wang. Michael Wang Lu. Sean Wang Lu. Liam Thomas Ward Jr. Rachel Victoria Wasilewski. Nicholas Robert Watson. Melissa Kaufman Watt. Ingrid Newell Watts. Wan Wei. Roberta Alyssa Wiener. Brian Thomas Weisbecker. Grant Weisberg. Maximilian Jean Weiss. Austin Lee Worth. Amanda Elaine Weisler. Rebecca Lauren Janish White. Emily Mae Wilcox. Paige Michelle Williams. Gabrielle Elena Mevs Weimer. Curtis Alden Carlson Winter. Tyler Jacob Wojak. Paige Elaine Womack. Thomas Jennings Wood. Zachary Joseph Wooten. Alan Taylor Worth. Vincent Wu. Wilson Young Wu. Christian Nathaniel Wise. Christina Zhou. Angela Jin. Wenzhao Xing. Yushuan Jing. Stephen Shinhai Zhu. Brian Renan Yen. Robin Ye. Nadine Melissa Yateman. Emily Chenyang Yi. Chan Yoon. Jaiwan Yoon. Voram Yoon Yo. Catherine Ann Young. Raina Huiying Yu. Sheng Yu. Teresa H. Yuan. Samuel Macklin Zacher. Cooper D. Zajac. Mari Elvia Zaldivar. Xiaozu Zhang. Fasika Efewerk Zelalu. Timothy Hughes Zelmer, Amy Zhang, Dora Yuhei Zhang, Gordon Birdie Zhang, Ivy Tangyan Zhang, Kerry Paul Zhang, Lukun Zhang, Sharon Liao Zhang, Walter Wang Zhang, Xinyuan Zhang, Yu Yu Zhang, Davis Boyoung Zhao, Sarah Jessica Zhao, Tony Zhao, Kyle Bo Zhang, Alan William Zhang, Philip Xuan Zhu, Annie Zhu, Joyce Yixia Zhu, Kaywin Quinson Zhuang, Diane Jessica Zimmerman, Evan Joseph Zimmerman, and Nicholas Zuleta.
Mr. President and Dean Boyer, I now present for their diplomas additional students who have completed programs in the college. Andrew Ree Ahn. Bilal Jalan Ajram. Young Lim. Nikolai Maxime. Ellen Mary Roney. President and Dean Boyer, as Marshal of the University, I have the honor of presenting for their diplomas the Student Marshals in 2015. Appointed by the President for their excellent record in academic studies and their contributions to the university and its community, they have served exceedingly well as student marshals. Daniel Alexander Ackerman. Emma Shirato Alman. Joseph Michael Barrell. Kristen Binder. Emily Margaret Ann Bishop. Julia Bodson. Kristen Anik Bray. Krishanu Chatterjee. Aishin Chen. Sophia Chen. Joshua Benjamin Chopa. Jessica Kristen Coville. Caressa Lene Franklin. Allison Gambardella. Benita Kaur Glamour. Erin Paulina Hart. Sherry Shinru Her. Karina Joyce Hendren. Brock Donald Allen Hubner. Marika Catchman. Dake Jungmo Kang. Kathleen Sadie Kraus. Catherine Marie Martinez. Spencer McAvoy. Caitlin Anna McCarthy. Alexandra Ross McIsaac. Benjamin Alexander Reese McKenna. Anastasia Katerina Chandali Mentzelopoulos. Maya O'Meara. Lydia Trinidad Pazienza. Kelly Lynn Payton. Shruti Ramaswamy. Holly Elizabeth Rapp. Shoshana Lisa Rudin. Raghav Sawhney. Andrew Bumjan Song. Isaac Hayden Stein. Matthew Christopher Towser. Zi Eun Teo. Mallory Catherine Van Meter. Michael Harris Warren. Brett Marvin Wisen. Austin T. Yu.
Three years ago and 9 months, I had the pleasure to address you on opening day in Rockefeller Chapel. It's thus a very special privilege now to address you at the close of your studentship at the university. From across America and across the world, you came here to Chicago to become citizens of this great university. And you remained loyal and engaged citizens of your hometowns and your neighborhoods. But in coming here, you became citizens of a new community, a university that has always had a universal mission in American higher education. In graduating today, you have joined, for the rest of your lives, a community that many consider the ideal university, a place of integrity and authority and efficacious intellectual power used to encourage the development of the creative will. Down through the decades of our history comes a cascade of respect for the educational work of your university, for the good that it has done, for the creativity that it has nurtured, for the self-confidence and the talent that it has sponsored in its students, and for the standards of excellence that it has demanded of all of us. The grandeur of our community, that which shines forth to each person who visits us even for a short time, and that which graces each of us who have had the high privilege of joining this community as permanent members, is that it is a courageous and fearless place, a place of strong liberty and vibrant convictions. And out of all those convictions, and out of all the generations of free and open debate that they've sponsored and protected, has arisen an institution worthy, truly worthy of the meaning and the promise of the higher learning. Very few educational institutions and very few universities in our society have had such power to enrich and transform human life. You came to Chicago with great hopes, immense hopes, ardent zeal, and you've worked assiduously to be worthy of this great university and the special honor that attaches to anyone who passes through it. We cannot know today the particulars of what lies ahead in each of your lives, but we do know that you are strong and perceptive, that you have the energy and the grace to begin to master the world, and that you will succeed and flourish and make significant contributions to all of your communities, to everywhere you go. It was a privilege to have you as our students. It is an even greater honor to have you as our alumni. And I hope that you will help us make the college an even more vibrant place for the students that come after you. And I also hope that you will remember the extraordinary impact that it and all of your friends today have made on each of your lives. Let me end this ceremony by wishing that you all encounter great and good fortune in the fascinating journeys ahead, and I wish Godspeed to all of you. Thank you very much.
I thank you for attending today's ceremony, and on behalf of the university, extend best wishes to all graduates and their family and friends. I also welcome you to continue today's celebration by joining your respective class under the tents in the Harper, Classics, and Social Science quadrangles for a reception. Please remain in place until the platform party and graduates have withdrawn. This now concludes the College Diploma Ceremony of the 527th Convocation of the University of Chicago.
Leave it on the chair.